And welcome back to the ACE Football Academy. This is part 2 with Coach Tripp Rogers of Center College. Today we're discussing parent interactions, offers to recruits, and any other tidbits that Coach can give us. Let's back into the conversation. This is Tripp Rogers from Center College.
So speaking of the red flag situation here, we know when kids are going through recruiting, they're all in high school, so obviously the parents are involved. Have parents ever overstepped their boundaries that made you say that's going to be an issue?
Yes. Yes.
Do you have any lovely examples you could throw at us that says, okay, got it.
Parents just going mental on the sideline over minor things.
Oh, yeah.
Parents that want to rage on their kids because of their kids' performance instead of supporting their kids and understanding, you have a bad day sometimes. Parents that want to confront coaches about playing time publicly.
Yes.
Yes. There's so many fragments like that. I've also been in situations with Zooms and those types of things over the years where you're Zooming with the family, but nobody's allowed to talk except for one specific parent. They keep stepping on their kid as they try and engage with the coach and those types of things. Those for me are concerning.
Which makes sense because we've discussed this previously where we've talked about in today's society, parents are overly involved with their kids' lives, not just athletically, and just like you said, we've seen this as well where parents are confronting coaches over why's my kid substitute out of a game? Who cares? We're trying to win a game. Or, complaining about how a practice went, just things that they need to just stay out of and let the coaches show their expertise and teach the kids what we know instead of, I got this parent that wants to tell me how I need to run my practices.
Right. You don't tell them.
And they've never played the game in their life.
Right.
Yeah. My favorite,
I think from 2010 to about 2015 or 16, we had the helicopter parent generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where they hovered and everything. And then now we refer to them as snowplow parents. We get kids that are freshmen in college that have had all obstacles removed from them. And the first time they ever fail and have to pick themselves back up is they're 18 years old. And it's hard when you wait that long. And it can seem very fatalistic, like a 10-year-old and no Wi-Fi. But once these kids figure out that it's going to be okay, they have tremendous growth. But that's a product of what's occurring in all sports across all platforms right now. Snow, I don't know what's after snowplows, but.
So when when we talk to players, we always like to say, okay, here we are. You've got school A, B, and C. What are some things that go into that final decision for you as a player? And they mention things like the academic program, the location. Are they going to be able to handle being 2 hours from home versus 8 hours from home? And they bring up all these great points. For a coach, you have player A, B, and C. What are some things that go into kind of making that final decision on, okay, we're going to offer player C because of this?
Well, so you're saying basically I have 3 of the same players and I got to pick one. What separates them?
Yeah, like what are some like minor details that may separate 3 players from one roster spot?
Sure. Well, it'll be their interaction with our team when they're on campus for their official visits. It'll also be their engagement and body language and how engaged are they through our conversations. Do they really want to be at center, or is center a place they could see themselves playing? Well, I want the kid that really wants to be here. I've been that way at Findlay and at Moorhead. One of the reasons at Division I we didn't talk a lot of money up front was because we wanted a player to like the institution and want to be there prior to making an offer. It was important that they could see themselves there. Also, when it comes to the academic component, the women's game's pretty finite. After college, there's only maybe Sunday league and a few other things that, the amount of kids that go pro are extremely small. So what institution is going to set you up to go pro in life? What institution is going to give you the best advantage? I think that's huge for families to consider. We grew up in a generation where your family would mortgage their home to send you to school. That doesn't exist anymore. Now it's everybody's trying to go to school as cheap and spend as little money as humanly possible. I understand that too, but what's the way off? If you're going to borrow a little bit of money to get an education that sets you up for the A job, or are you going to go to the school that you paid very, very little for? And I don't know what your experience is going to be, but what jobs are they getting kids that graduate from out of there? Is it the same? Like, that has a value, and understanding that it's going to be uncomfortable to potentially achieve that it's a learning curve.
Yeah, that's important stuff to understand. I think the last question for me, and this is something that we talked about really the last couple of weeks here, where we've been discussing, is the league that you're playing in a major factor for college coaches? Like we've talked about this cartoon where there's two paths to get to college. One is the ECNL league, and the other path is everything beneath that player. And somehow a lot of these players are still making it to the same colleges. So with your expertise and all the years of your experience here, do you feel that whether it be ECNL or any other random league is a major factor in a kid's development?
I think the academies of those clubs is the factor in the development. I do personally believe the ECNL is a top women's league in the country, hands down. I mean, it's not even close. So much so that they have the regional league component to that now, and that's getting ready to be the second best league. So between the E64 Pro, DPL, GA, they all have fine. The tops of those leagues are very good. The bottoms of those leagues are state league.
Yeah.
So the thing that's the difference with the ECL is the disparity is not as much from top to bottom. But you can go in any of those leagues and find top-notch players. Absolutely, wholeheartedly, 100%. But what you're going to find is the players that play in the top leagues and the players that are playing in those games adjust to the speed of play of college ball faster.
Okay.
Kid A may play in that league and get there and be an impact freshman wherever they go, or do whatever, or get on the field as a freshman. A lot of times we don't talk about that with players. Is the statistical average for a freshman playing college soccer on the women's side is 90 minutes your freshman year total playing time. That makes you that above average freshman.
Right. Yeah.
So the thoughts of going in and getting to contribute significantly, if they do that, they've done a great job. But if you play a little bit more each year, you're on that developmental model for that program. And my personal experience is the kids that come from the higher league have a better opportunity to impact right away, and the kids that don't have a freshman growing year where they're drinking information through a fire hose. They're downloading data and continuing to learn and grow. And if they embrace that role, they grow rapidly. If they fight it, it's hard because it feels like the world's against them.
Well, and Tripp, we talked off air a little bit, and we know that you're familiar with Don Williams. We had him on, and he said one of the biggest things that he notices the differences between a Division I or a Division II player, or, even in those club differences, is that, that player who is going to make an impact, they are soccer junkies, is what he referred to them as. And that means that, they're getting up on Saturday mornings at 7:30 and they're watching the EPL leagues. They're not sitting on their phones. They're not, who's your favorite player? And they're like, Alex Morgan. because that's the only player they can name, So I think what you just hinted at, like, does your club matter? Sure, it matters for exposure and things like that. But for the development and for the recognition as a player, that's just a lot of that's going to be your own personal drive.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And let's call a spade a spade. I mean, some of these big clubs have big connections,
Right.
so, and then those big leagues have big connections. So players do get the benefit of the doubt over the kid that is not at a well-known club or playing in a smaller league. That happens as well. But, Don's spot on. Give me a gym rat any day.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tripp, before we let you go, any final thoughts, any final message for maybe, that freshman in high school who's looking to be recruited or has the talent to be recruited? Any final thoughts for them?
Well, there's a school for kids of all talent all over the country. Number one, if you want to play, you can find somewhere to go play. Number two is have fun. A lot of individuals get so intimidated by the recruiting process and get wound up tight about this, that, and the other. Enjoy it. Absolutely enjoy it. How many people don't get to get recruited or don't get to go through that process or don't have the option to make those choices and decisions and visits and so on and so forth? You're only looking at about 3 or 4% of high school players every year get to go on and play college soccer. So, like, if somebody's calling, writing, emailing, whatever it is, enjoy it. Absolutely find out as much as you can about whatever program and see if it's for you and if it's not. And if you're not sure, take a look anyways, because you may be surprised. I wouldn't shut any door that's open until you know for certain that it's not for you. And if there's somewhere you want to go and you're super interested, then you utilize every friggin' resource you possibly have to get a hold of that coaching staff, friends, family, neighbors, whatever it is. If that's where you want to be, then you sell yourself and you make your campaign. But enjoy it. I can't stress enough. It's a game. It's a game. We all love it. We do it because we love it. But, don't let any part of this ever stress you out. Just enjoy it. And Jay and I refer to it as it's the sweatshirt method. You don't want to go somewhere all wearing your suit or a prom dress and everything. You don't want to go through life like that. You want to go find a place that's got your cookie eating pants on and your sweatshirt and it's comfortable. That's where you want to go to school.
Yeah,
absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tripp, we appreciate you coming on board here. Hopefully we can see you again here in the future. I know I've learned plenty today. This has been very beneficial. And any final thoughts from you, Coach?
Not at all. Sounds good.
Well, Tripp,
I greatly appreciate you all having me. It's been a joy.
Absolutely. We'll see you again next time.
We'll see you.
All right, welcome back. We've just finished our conversation with Tripp Rogers, coach at Center College here in Kentucky. I can say I've learned a few things from him, some things that I wasn't aware of. Again, we're always looking for things that we want to pass on to our listeners. We'll make sure that they're well prepared and getting a coach's perspective of what he's looking for, his expectations, maybe some things that he's seeing that he's not really telling people about. I think great discussion here. So as we've done before, what are some things that you saw here that really stood out for you that you learned from Coach Rogers there?
Yeah, first, big thank you to Tripp for coming on. He was great. It was a great discussion, as you said. One of the first thing that kind of really that I liked, that I thought was important, is several of the items that he mentioned are items that we've heard in previous podcasts from John or Rachel or Olivia we have spoken to.
Which really should be driving that home to our listeners. If it's repeated by the players and now the coach,
right,
you need to be writing that down.
And I think the bottom line for all of it is both ways, there has to be good communication.
Yeah.
There has to be communication that is open and honest, and you're not holding back anything from me. I'm not holding back from anything from you. And we are talking like two adults.
Right.
You know, and a lot of that goes to a word that we've used a few times in this series of maturity. Having that, okay, you know, it's time to be an adult. It's time to grow up. And that sounds hard for a freshman or sophomore or junior or even a senior in high school sometimes. But I think you're hearing it across the board from all these players and now Coach Rogers. So I think that underlying theme of being open and honest both ways is so important.
And I think this is an important topic. You know, we're repeating things with the players, repeating things with the coach, but this is a message to the parents. You know, sometimes you got to kind of step back and say, you need to contact the coach.
Absolutely.
You need to email the coach. You're on the field. You need to go shake his hand. Right. You need to know his name, for one thing. And if you're shy, we said this before, if you're shy, be shy. If you're outgoing, be outgoing. But you've got to learn to give that handshake. You've got to learn to pick up that phone and not text every single time. You know, those communications matter to that coach. And it's telling him what kind of person you are. And it's telling him, are you a fit? Aren't you a fit? And all those interactions, whether it be through Zoom calls, through official, unofficial visits, or him watching you on the sideline of a field, all those interactions are being jotted down. And it's important that you learn how to deal with these interactions because everyone is going to tell him what kind of player you're going to be. And if you're, as we said many times before, if you're the right fit for him, it's not just the player looking for the right fit. The coach is also looking for the right fit as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you just be open, be honest, and be yourself, as you've alluded to. And, you know, you have to talk. You have to say hi. You have to shake the hand. You know, you have to do those things if you're serious about playing at the next level.
Yeah. So the next topic that I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad Coach Rogers brought this up. He wants a player that knows the history of the school, knows the programs, knows the coaches' names. I mean, we laugh at that, but when you get an email and my last name is Dunham. I've been called Durham so many times. It drives me crazy. Imagine someone said your name wrong. It matters.
Well, and
do your homework and have things written down when you have those interactions because they're going to come up.
Right. Well, and two things that I think he was alluding to in that conversation when he was kind of joking around about getting an email from a recruit with the wrong school or the wrong, you know, it's no secret that recruits copy and paste emails and then they go back and change.
Absolutely.
And then they go back and change. That is not a secret for anybody. Yeah. I hope our listeners understand that and aren't thinking. But even in that email, if you can throw in one or two specific little nuggets about that school, you know, that's going to catch their attention. That's going to let them know, okay, not only is this player serious about playing soccer, but this player is serious about my school as well. And as he mentioned several times over the course of the interview, that's important to them.
Yeah, and I think they want to know more about, I know about your school. I've seen you on TV. They want to know you have their program. This is what you've done the past 2 or 3 seasons that has sparked their interest. Or maybe something simple as, you know what, you're only an hour away from my home, and I love that.
Right, yeah.
You know, these little simple things, letting the coach know, okay, they've got some details. Let's have a conversation and see how in depth that they've done their homework.
Yep, absolutely.
And just like we said before, all those interactions, they were going to build up his notes, and he's going to put this together when he's trying to decide, is it player A, B, or C? Just like we talked about in the interview, maybe that one little detail is going to go a long way.
And again, there seems to be a theme here because the next thing that kind of popped up to me was just making sure you respond to any inquiry you get. You know, he mentioned they don't reach out to 1,000, 1,500 players. You know, they reach out to their original, you know, maybe 50 or 100. And even if you're not interested, just sending that one sentence, short, sweet, email back saying, hey, thanks for reaching out. I appreciate it. Thanks for noticing me. But at this time, I'm just not interested in your school. And he mentioned how important that is for several different reasons, whether it be the recruiting process doesn't play out for you down the road or the way you thought it would, or the end of your freshman year, the school you chose hasn't fit your needs or you decide isn't right for me, and now it's time to transfer. And, he said, we take note of all those things. And if you can't give me the time of day to send me a one sentence, thanks for reaching out, I'm not interested at this time, why should I give you that same respect back?
Absolutely. And I love that we're talking about this. This isn't just a recruiting thing. This is a life, career, personal behavior that we're talking about. When you're going to interviews for your career, I always tell my kids, I got one kid that's in that process right now, but when you're done with the interview, the next day, send that hiring manager a message saying, thank you for the interview.
Right.
Here are the things that I thought stood out for me. Let them know that, again, we're talking about this 1,000 times, you have a maturity level, you've done your homework that matters to you. And all those things will be beneficial for you, not just in your personal life, but your career, anything else that you interact with.
Yeah, and you mentioned that topic that he kind of hit on with, hey, I got one roster spot left and I'm choosing from A, B, or C. I don't know if you caught this, but the way he responded, I felt like that was a tough question for him. He asked me to clarify, he wanted some little more background, and he didn't come out and say it, but I think you're absolutely right. If I have player A, B, and C, and player B has been open and honest with me, and player B has responded to my messages, has followed up to my inquiries, I may lean player B just because of that maturity level, that respect that they're showing me and they're showing my program.
Yeah, and we talked about this in the interview. Even if you have a change of heart, let's say your freshman, sophomore year, you said, sorry, coach, I'm just not interested in your school for whatever reason. You were respectful, you were honest and straightforward, and they said, completely understand. 2 years later, you didn't get the offer that you were looking for, and now you kind of go back and say, now I am interested, but because you were mature about it, respectful, you handled yourself the right way, they're probably going to be a little bit more open to you. And I think this plows home to parents not fixing other kids' problems growing up. They've got to learn these failure situations, and I think this process here is a great attribute to learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing I think, one of the great things we have with having Coach Rogers here is he's a coach for the last 20-some years, as he said, all levels of coaching. And we're getting a coach's perspective of what he sees when he's evaluating, interacting. And one of the things that he stood out when he's having FaceTime calls, Zoom calls, official visits, when he's watching games, is your body language.
Yeah. I think he mentioned that word 4 or 5 times.
Multiple times. Are you playing on your phone when you're on official visit, or when you're on a Zoom call? Are you staring off into space? Can you not keep, your attention to the conversation here? Can you carry the conversation? Do you appear to be getting bored with the conversation? Those factors are going to tell him maybe they're just not that interested. The other thing is coachability. When he's watching you on the sidelines, or maybe you're at an ID camp, are you open to his coaching style? What are you doing in your club team? Maybe you're having an argument with your coach on the sideline about maybe you got subbed off the field. All that comes together. The other thing I think is very important here that he brought up that I love is the parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Parents need to understand that your kid is going to be an adult very soon, and parent etiquette is being observed, whether it be in the Zoom calls. Are you dominating the call? Are you answering for your kid? Are you acting like a lunatic on the sidelines, yelling and screaming? Are you yelling at your kid because they didn't play good enough? Are you not supportive after a game? they're watching these too, because these are massive red flags. Because if your behavior is like that while they're in high school, why would that coach think it's going to be any different when you go into college? It's showing that coach, the parent doesn't see their kid as an adult. They see them as their subordinate, and that could be an issue down the road.
Yeah. Well, and back to the player things, again, the theme that we're seeing, during the recruiting process, a lot of our players have mentioned, do they have the right program? Do they, are they close enough? Is the location, things like that are so, they're not soccer specific. And the two things he brought up aren't soccer specific. He brought up body language. How do you respond in those tough moments? It's easy, and we all know it's easy.
And those tough moments, you mean in game situations? Yeah.
It's easy to be rah-rah and happy when you're up 4-0 and things are going swimmingly. But what about when you're down 4-0? You have, given up a PK. You're playing your arch rival. You're just getting completely outplayed. In those moments, how do you respond? So I love that he brought up that body language. And then, the coachability. You go to college, and college shouldn't be the final stopping point in your brain. It's not like, oh, I got here, I'm done developing.
Right.
You're going to get some of your best coaching at the college level. That's why they're college coaches, because they're really good at what they do. And so are you going to be a player that they can coach? So by the time you're a junior or a senior at that school, you're a solid player on the field. And I love that you asked the question about the parents, and I love the specific information that he gave us. It is no secret that when these coaches show up to a game to watch you play or watch the recruit play, one of the first things they do is they find the parents. They find, where are mom and dad sitting? I want to keep an eye on them. And maybe it's because they want to go up and say, hi, I'm here. But if parents think that those types of things, from, yelling at a referee to pacing up and down the sideline to everybody's favorite, coaching from the sideline. If I'm a coach, or if I'm a recruit, if I'm a college coach, and I'm watching, and my players' eyes in a moment go to mom and dad before they go to the head coach, you better believe I'm taking a note of that. And so I think that's so important for parents to realize you're being recruited to. As a parent, you are being recruited to, and so you also have to do what's right for your kid.
I think a better term there is they're being evaluated. The kid is the one being recruited, but the parents are being evaluated, because if you're going crazy on the sideline, if your kid is being dominated by mom and dad, that they're having to look in the stands when they make a mistake instead of being accountable for it to their teammates.
Right.
That is a massive red flag for any coach. And it's probably going to turn away some coaches from higher level type of divisions.
Absolutely.
That's a great topic, and I'm really glad we discussed that in detail with Coach Rogers. But we're not just talking to the players here; we're also talking to the parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that Coach Rogers brought up here was this sweatshirt reference, where he talks about finding the school that you can wear their team name on the front. Can you give us more information what he's trying to say there?
Yeah. So, I love this. I've never heard this before, but I wrote it down. It's going to be something that, I use to players who I know are going through that process. So the sweatshirt reference, think about it. Are there those moments in life where we have to wear a suit and tie, or we have to put on the prom dress, as he mentioned? Of course there are. But most days, what do most of us wear? We wear jeans and a sweatshirt. That's what we're comfortable in, sweatpants and a sweatshirt. That's what we're comfortable in. And that's what he was getting to. You want to go to a school that you are going to be comfortable in the off season, during the season, being comfortable in a place that hopefully you're going to spend the next 4 years of your life. And you don't want it to feel like a job all the time. You don't want to feel like you're always having to go the extra mile. Not that you shouldn't always do that, but it's a place where going the extra mile is easy and you're comfortable in your own skin.
And I think the important thing, and I love that we brought this up here, and I think kind of bring it all together, you want to be able to wear something with pride and not be ashamed to walk around and have your friends or family say, why is he wearing that? And you can say, because it means something to me.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to get at. It's about, again, finding that right fit. What are you comfortable with? Is it the right thing for you? And I think we'll get more in details about that down the road eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. Tripp was great today. I loved having that conversation on. I loved spinning it a little bit. We've had 3 really solid players on the podcast to talk about their specific recruiting style, but I think having Coach Rogers on was extremely beneficial, and I hope it was to our listeners as well.
Absolutely. If you like our videos, please watch more.
Yeah.
If you've missed other ones in the past, please look at those from the player's perspective. But we'll make more in the future. This is the Bluegrass Soccer Academy. We'll see you next time.